Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave, and today I'm joined by ST Patrick and Marco Scola. ST, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much for having me back on, Dave.
And Marco, welcome back.
Dave, ST, good to see you guys. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, it is a holiday weekend. We're recording on this holiday weekend, and today we're going to be talking about accuracy. We're going to go a deep dive into accuracy this time. I know we've touched on it before. I think we've done a couple of shows on it, but we're going to go really deep into game accuracy in this episode. Again, this is episode 264 of the Digital to Dice podcast. Ways to get a hold of us. DigitalToDice.com is the website. That's DigitalToDice.com. 978-751-DICE is the text line. DigitalToDice@yahoo.com is the email. Over on Facebook, join the group, facebook.com/groups/DigitalToDice. And if you'd like to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/DigitalToDice. And for $5 a month, you can get into the Discord and chat with us over there on Discord. A very lively Discord that we have going on with Digital to Dice Patreon members. Okay, so we need to check the weather, first of all. It's been nothing but rain over here on the East Coast. I don't know if you guys have seen the sun. If it is, let me know what it looks like.
Actually, I'm usually the one that makes the jokes in Illinois because literally yesterday, my niece had her first birthday and my sister threw this big party for the whole family. And it was cold. Not cold, but not cold for May. It was like mid-50s. And then this morning it rained. And then I was outside doing yard work today and I'm sweating and it's like mid-60s and sun. So, you know, the old saying around here is if you don't like the weather, just wait a minute.
Same out here. It'll change. Yeah.
No, it's been nice here in northeastern Indiana. We're about 3 hours outside of Chicago, so Marco and I experience a lot of the same patterns. And I would say it's been cool, but I like the cool. I do not like the heat of the hot August night. And so I've been fine with this kind of having a little bit of a cool-ish May.
Friday night, that's 2 nights ago, we had a nor'easter roll through here. It was raining. It wasn't raining heavy, but it was raining. And a good friend of mine, he married his girlfriend, longtime girlfriend, and she insisted on going out on a boat in the rain on Friday night. And it was about 48 degrees when we left. And there was a tiny boat. It was about the size of the orca in Jaws. Right? A little canopy. Every seat on the outside was soaked because it was raining, so everyone's trying to cram under the canopy. And if you were lucky to get a seat, you were fine. There was like 6 or 8 seats. If you were standing, you had to hang on for dear life because that boat was just rocking back and forth because of the storm. And I said, is this going to be a 3-hour tour? You know, does anybody bring coconut cream pies or something? And so they got married, went back in, and I was probably a minute and a half away from getting seasick. I just grabbed onto the bar on the way home and just breathed through my nose for about a half hour to try not to. Yeah, and I'm just not a boat guy, I guess, especially when I'm rocking back and forth in a small boat. That was just something I hadn't done in years. I was like, yeah, it's like, dude, if you get married again, I ain't going if it's on a boat. So this is one and done for me. So, and it was cold. My wife was freezing. It was a miserable time. I was happy for them and glad for them, but boy, it was a miserable time for someone who doesn't like boats when it's raining and 50 degrees. Just saying. Anyway, so now that the weather's out of the way, let's find out what we're playing. Marco, let's start with you. What have you been playing?
So actually, just before coming on, I rolled a game of Grid Zone. I'm in the middle of, as you know, and every time I say it, I see ST get a little wince, but I play a lot of fictional. So I'm in the middle of my Grid Zone season, middle of my Stone Cold Hockey season. And this kind of plays into what we were talking about today, but yesterday I woke up and I had the biggest itch that I've had maybe in years, where I'm like, I will not go to bed happy today unless I played this game. And this game was History Maker Baseball, full play. And so I sat down. I'm like, do I start a new fictional season because I finished my one? Because the last time I pulled this game out was November. And I decided I'm going to whip out the 1998 season. And I played Cubs Giants, and the reason why I picked Cubs is obvious. The reason why I picked the Giants, and this may be a little controversial, my favorite player to watch growing up was Barry Bonds. And so I wanted to play with Barry Bonds. And he ended up hitting 1 home run in the game. Sammy Sosa got a home run in that game.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, all right, perfect. I got what I wanted. I scratched the itch, and then I immediately decided I'm going back to fictional. So that's what I'm playing. So,
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
ST, what have you been rolling?
So when I was in Connecticut last weekend, Joseph Costa showed me how to play Glory Days boxing.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. He explained it very, very well. Awesome guy. And a highlight of the weekend. And so I've been experimenting a little bit with that and still playing a lot of hockey, believe it or not, Dave.
Nice. I think we all
still
should.
Playing a lot of shootout hockey, playing a lot of stone cold hockey, and about to learn John Turnbull's new red ice hockey as well. As you know, I do like the sort of shorter play hockey because it kind of scratches the itch that I need for hockey, not being an expert, but and some bank shot basketball, which sort of stays kind of in my area permanently. I like it very much, and so that's what I have been playing.
Oh, over here, let's see. I played the bank shot basketball. Actually, you and James Hart. Was it James
Hart? Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are showing me and Dave Little that right before that we ended the convention last weekend there. Can believe it's been a week since the convention.
I can't believe it.
Flew by, yeah. And I was pretty impressed with it. And I think it's somebody as a non-basketball fan, meaning that I just don't follow it enough, that I could enjoy it. And it was enough of a challenge, though, because I do like a little bit of a challenge when I play these games. And so there was enough of a challenge, but it didn't seem like there were too many. I don't like it sometimes when you flip a card and say, okay, here's the result, except if it's Tuesday, and except if there's an asterisk, and except if the guy's last name begins with Z, and then you have all these extra things you got to try to remember, and for me, that kind of screws me up. So this game didn't have a lot of those, and I just followed it, and I enjoyed it, so I ordered that in a couple of seasons, so that'll be in a little bit. But speaking about basketball, I did give John Turnbull's Baseline basketball a go last night. I streamed a few games and showed off that a little bit. I think I played it pretty much right, and it's a fun time. It'll get you a nice final score, but it does it in such a way that you see the game progress. And it's not a fast game, but it's not like a full play game either. You know, I feel like there's a lot of meat on the bone to get you where you want to go, and it's not over in a flash. You know, so it's not going to be over real fast. But I think there's just enough, and for me, it's just enough basketball to follow along and get those scores. And so I did a video last night. So I really did enjoy the Baseline basketball. I think during the week I played some hockey bones. I had an itch. Somehow I had an itch to play Bobby Orr, just, you know, as I do. And then somehow I pulled out the 1992-93 season, and I played Kings and the Flames. And I was like, well, that's not Bobby Orr, but, you know, we're going to play some Kings and Flames. And that was a 3-3 tie, I think that one was. And then last night, after I got done baseball and basketball, I pulled out Payoff Pitch, and I went back to my 1976 Red Sox playthrough that I'm scoring with Digital Diamond. And I was playing a little bit last night, and I got tired, and I left it, and I come back today. I was trying to finish it before we recorded today, but I'm still in the 7th inning. Both pitches have been knocked out. I was like, I don't want to rush it, you know, so I just put it off to the side. But I do like that. Payoff pitches, like I think APBA Basic Baseball is probably my favorite baseball game because it's easy. I don't have to think about it, and it just plays really nice, and I like the APBA cards in a whole bit. If I want a little bit more, that's when I go into Payoff Pitch because I think it just got a little bit more going on with it, and it's a little bit more challenging, and sometimes I enjoy that. So I played that last night, 1976 Sox. I'll continue that game later on. So that's basically what I've been playing. A little bit of hockey, a little bit of basketball, a little bit of baseball, a little bit of everything here on the channel going on. So
very nice.
All righty. So now that we got the what you're playing out of the way, what do you say we dive into our topic of the day? I think I covered everything, right? I got our intro, we got our weather report, we got what we're playing. So now I think we can dive into the topic of the day. Here we go. All righty. So one thing that people ask all the time is how accurate is it? And I know that we've talked about this on the show before. We're going to go a little deeper, though. ST wrote a terrific article in the Sports Simulation magazine that he does. And I'm going to have him expand on that, and then Marco and I will chime in to add our 2 cents as well. So, ST, why don't you take it away? So, when someone asks you, how accurate is it, what's your response?
My response would probably be that I don't quite understand what you mean by accuracy, because it can mean so many things to so many people. And the example that I use often is, I'll say also that your tolerance for accuracy or inaccuracy also matters as well, and where you want the accuracy and the inaccuracy matters. For example, if you were going to play the 1980 Royals, and let's just say that the Royals, after 162 games, win the exact same amount of games in your replay that they win in real life. They win the AL West, and they go on to the World Series even to face the same NL team in 1980, the Philadelphia Phillies. Wow, that seems accurate. But what if George Brett that year hit 365 for you rather than 390 that he hit in real life, and he's 25 points off? Is the game still accurate, or is it inaccurate? Is it accurate for you if George Brett hits 390? I mean, right on the dot, but the Royals end up 10 games out and do not win the AL West, and instead they end up in third place. Is the game inaccurate, or is it accurate? I just can't even understand. I can't answer that, I'll say, because I think we all have our own sort of tolerance for accuracy and intolerance for accuracy. And so it's very hard to understand if you mean accuracy or do you mean realism, because I would describe realism in a way that I wouldn't describe accuracy. Accuracy to me is, I'm going to make an Excel spreadsheet after my replay, and I'm going to have a line with the real stats and a line with my replay stats, and it better be within 1.38%, or I'm going to call the game inaccurate. But again, does that mean like the player stats have to be within 1.38%? Does that mean the team stats have to be within 1.38%? Or does that mean that the league stats have to be within 1.38%? And do the stats have to end up making the wins and losses of the teams within 1.38%, or it's completely inaccurate? And so it's a very hard question to answer, because it's very hard, oddly enough, and ironically, accuracy is a hard word to define, even though it means a very finite thing. It can also be this vast general concept that where we don't really know. And realism, to me, on the other hand, which is sort of what I strive for, means that I want Steve Carlton to be a really good pitcher. I want Andre Dawson to hit some home runs, and I want Ricky Henderson to steal quite a few bases. It has more of a feel of what you're expecting, as opposed to, say, some finite having it, within 3% or 3.2% of real life results. And we can go into why it may not be possible most of the time for it to get within that 3.2% of real results, and why that may actually be our fault and not the game's.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it does come down to it's very subjective. Like you said, it's like, if Kansas City got to the World Series, does that make the game accurate? If they lose to the Yankees and don't get to the World Series, is the game inaccurate? I guess we all have for me, as long as you're in the ballpark, and again, the size of the ballpark can vary from me to you and everybody listening to the game here. I just want to I just want to have something close. I mean, I want to be able to take a bad team and have them win a few more games. I want a good team to stumble, and I don't want to, again, if I want to see exact results, I'll just go to Sports Reference and take a look at the results in UNA.
I agree.
But I want to see how they do on my tabletop and how they do it there. One example is I think Al Red Sox fan was doing the 1978 Kansas City Chiefs. He was playing that. Don't ask me why. It's a very obscure team, but, that's what we do. And he got them into the playoffs, I think. And I remember Ron and I looked at that and says, how is that possible? They were a 500 team. And we looked at their record, and they lost 5 or 6 games by 4 points or less. So in that accuracy talk, if they had won those 4 games by a couple of points, that they instead of losing by a couple of points, that puts them at 12-4. They're in the playoffs rather than 8-8. And that's one thing that sometimes we take an overview of the season and of the player, and it's like, okay, they're 8-8. There's no way they could be 12-4. Well, dive into that a little bit more and take a look at that. I always say the 1971-72 New York Rangers, they beat up on the Bruins all the time. I played it in APA, I played it in Hockey Bones, and they're crushing the Bruins in 5 games. And when I look at the cards, at the ratings, the top line of the Rangers, their shooting ranges are almost twice the Bruins. But if you look at their scoring, like Rod Gilbert and guys like that, they were scoring on 20% of their shots, and that scoring range is just accurate for a 20% shooter. And so that's why that team keeps beating the Bruins. But again, you think the Bruins won the cup, but they should walk over the Rangers. Mm-hmm. But you have to go a little bit deeper into these stats. You know what I mean, Marco?
I'm going to piggyback on something you both said. So, Dave, to your point, I would be really interested to see when APA or second season comes out with this past NFL season and see if the Kansas City Chiefs go whatever they were 13-4 again, because they won quite a few games. I could recall 3 off the top of my head, that blocked field goal being one of them. They should have lost 3 to 4 more games this year. So if you're looking for the tabletop Kansas City Chiefs to go, and again, forgive me, I forget what their record ended up being, but if you're looking for them to go 14-3 again, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And then something you said, ST, that just hit me like a ton of bricks, which is, that's what I look for when I play games, is how should this team feel, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I shared this before with you guys, and I cannot remember what game engine it was, but I did the 85 Bears, and I got to about week 6, and they were 3-3. And I'm like, I'm out, because it didn't feel like the 85 Bears. This defense should not be giving up anything more than 20 to 25 points a game, and they were giving up 30 and 40 burgers. That never would have happened. And there's a few things on the tabletop you can't replicate. I think of the 02 Buccaneers, for example, is considered one of the better defenses of all time. And the reason that is because they took back, I think it was 6 touchdowns or fumble returns for touchdowns, interceptions or fumble returns for touchdowns. A lot of that, when you're trying to replicate that on a tabletop, is completely random.
That's right.
How can you replicate? I'm not saying that 02 Bucks team, because Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp and what's his name, John Lynch, like, they were good. I'm not trying to. I know, Dave, you're a Bucks fan. I'm not trying to denigrate the Bucks at all, but a lot of their defensive success came from those. And I'm not calling them a fluke, but they came from fluky plays, right?
Exactly. No, that's exactly right, Marco. I mean, if you picked it off and scored a touchdown in real life, and the touchdown was, say, 38 yards, right? And you have a 38-yard pick return in a game, but he actually picks the ball off 80 yards away, you're still getting a maximum of, say, 38 yards. You're not going to score. So the conditions in the game have to be maximized for him to do what he did in real life. I agree with that 100%. I would go even further and say that there are often times where the real is actually unreal. and the real is the outlier. And the real result is something that is very hard to replicate, especially in a one-game basis where it's next to impossible. But not to be controversial, but I would also say this. I don't think a game designer is necessarily responsible for accurately depicting a one-game scenario. Like the highest scoring NBA game of all time in 1983. You could probably play those two teams 100 times and you won't get the highest scoring game in NBA history. You won't get the lowest scoring game in college basketball history either if you play the teams 100 times. Because what happened in real life is the outlier. Here's the controversial part. I also don't give any kudos to the game if they nail the final score exactly right either. Because I think both directions, it's kind of luck and roll of the die to a great degree. I never say, oh, you got the exact, score they had in real life in that game. Wow, what a great game. But I also don't hold them responsible for not getting the exact score, because on a one-game basis, I don't know what we're expecting. It's very hard to match a final score because a score is the result of the plays, which are a result of the statistics turned into ratings at the end of the season. A game never happens in the moment. For us, all the games happen in hindsight after the year ends, and the final stats have been turned into ratings. And so there are these scenarios that happen on those days, on week 3 in the NFL, that you can't replicate after week 18, and all the stats have been gathered and turned into ratings when the full schedule has been played. I just don't think replicating it, I don't think a game designer should get a sort of criticism, I'll say, for not being able to replicate a one-game basis. But I also don't think he should get the props either if his game nails it on a one-game basis either, because I think that's faulty as well.
Isn't that how... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Marco.
No, all I was going to say is, so are you guys familiar with cluster luck? Do you know what that is? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
was that a Nintendo game? Was that a Nintendo game?
No. So for those who don't know what that is, I would suggest a book for you to read. It's called Trading Bases. It's about this guy who is a Wall Street trader, and he got hit by a car, or an ambulance actually, walking across the street. And he was basically unemployed. So he decided that he was going to try and make a living by moving to Vegas and betting on daily baseball. That's what the book is about. And he was a big math wizard, and he knew formulas and this and that. And he basically, and I don't think he came up with it, but he used Bill James's statistical Bible. That's not what it's called, but that's how I imagine it.
Abstracts.
The abstract, the baseball abstract. Thank you. So basically what it is in its most basic level, right, is you look at, and you could apply this to any sport. You look at the points scored, or in baseball's case, runs scored and runs allowed, and you apply a formula, and it tells you this is what your win percentage should be. And then you look at their standings, and it's always different. It is almost never a one-for-one. And the reason why I bring that up, two things. One, to shout out that book. You all should read it. It's very good. He basically, which has now been eliminated with, and I'm not going to turn this into a gambling rant, but that has been eliminated. But he made a living betting on cluster luck and exploiting the odds differences in Vegas at the time. The whole reason why I bring this up is even in real life sports, there is a cluster luck, and that's why he called it that stat. There is a difference between a team's real winning percentage and what their winning percentage should be. So think about just using baseball. What goes into that, right? injuries. If I didn't have my best pitcher today, theoretically speaking, over the course of a 162 game season, they're going to cost me X number of wins. Managerial decisions. Did I play the most optimum lineup today? Bullpen decisions. Did I put the correct pitcher in this correct situation?
That's right.
Lefty versus, or by the way, I did everything right. I played the right pitcher in the right situation. I did the right switch hit. I did everything correct. But that guy just turned on an 0-2 fastball down Broadway and took me to deep center, and I lost the game. My whole point in this whole entire soliloquy, to borrow from Stephen A. Smith, is at the end of the day, in real sports, there is variance and there is luck, and some guys just have a lucky day. And some managers just have a lucky week, a lucky month, a lucky year, and there is nothing a game designer could do about it to capture that on the tabletop. Sorry to break it to you. You know, I know there's folks out there, and some are listening to me right now, and they're going to say you're full of it, but guess what? To quote our good friend Ron, once you roll the dice, baby, it's all fictional.
All fictional.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But as a game designer, ST, I'm kind of looking at this here. We were talking about, nailing the score correctly, okay? Isn't a game kind of designed to look at teams and then try to, what I'm trying to say is to get this target score, their average score, it's heavily weighted with the dice or the cards. So the chances are probably better than not that you're going to get close to their average score.
I would say the chances are pretty good that you'll get close to their average stats. The score is a result of a lot of things that deal with the stats. If Barry Bonds hit that home run and there just happens to be no one on base, it's worth 1. If Barry Bonds hits that home run and there are 3 guys on base, it's 4 runs. 4-1 is a huge gap in baseball. So it's very, very hard to nail scores on a weekly basis. And we also have to remember that these games are designed to sort of, hit your mean. They're, designed to hit the average. They're not designed for you to, say, max out against the great teams or to play poorly against the bad teams. They're sort of designed for a running back who runs 4 yards a carry to run 4 yards a carry when playing an average team. Now, that's going to go up or down depending on if your opponent is average, above average, or below average. But where I think Marco is 100% right is there are so many things that go into how we play the games. And I would even say, and again, I'm on the side of the game designer here, almost no one, I don't think, and I don't think that's an exaggeration, plays a game 100% like the team actually played the game. In baseball, we are notorious for not stealing enough bases. And I don't mean with Ricky Henderson. I mean guys who had 3 steals on the whole season, or a guy who went 0 for 10. We aren't running him. Even though he needs 10 attempts to maintain accuracy, his steal rating is horrible, and we aren't running him. So you aren't going to bring in the guy with the 8.9 ERA to pitch those 12 innings that he needs for your team stats at the end of the year to maintain accuracy. You aren't going to bring in that goalie to start those 5 games who was a piece of paper at the goal and the puck went straight through him every single time. Like, you're not going to start him those 5 games. Play calling is a great example, especially in college. I think we have a tendency in our modern era to want to throw the ball. If it's 3rd and 10, I think the 3 of us are going to say, oh, we have to pass it. But a team like 2017 Army ran the ball 92% of the time. 92%. If it's 3rd and 10 and you're choosing to pass the ball because you would rather do manual play calling than automated, then you're playing unrealistically while probably still expecting accuracy in stats at the end of the game.
That's a good point.
Is that the game's fault or is that our fault?
Yeah.
That's our fault for doing for not doing automated play calling and choosing to call the plays ourselves like we would call them instead of playing like the team. Also, how often do we play all the rules in the game? And if we aren't playing all the rules in the game that are designed to produce a result and accurate result, then who can we actually blame at the end of the game for it being an inaccurate result with inaccurate statistics?
Guilty.
No, that's fine. No, now I want to say here, all of that is fine. You can manually call your own plays. You can set your own lineups. You can bring your own pitchers. You could choose not to hit and run the entire year in a baseball game. And I think it's 100% fine. It's your game to play the way that you would like to play with that game. I think that is perfectly fine. Where I think it goes a little haywire is when you want to do all of that stuff and then demand accuracy from the game developer. Yeah. I think the moment you go off grid, he should be absolved completely.
Right.
From demands of accuracy. If you homebrew anything, that moment he should be absolved from all demands of accuracy, because you always think you're improving the game, but you don't know what things are working together behind the curtain that make this game operate and that make the game produce the stats that it will produce. It is like being in Oz behind the curtain. I say all the time, when you design a sports game, a full play sports game, you want to design the most complex, mathematical, tough machine of a game that you can, but from the front of the curtain, you want the person viewing the game to find it easy to play. But in finding it easy to play, some people kind of get lulled into thinking, oh, well, I can homebrew this and I can homebrew that and I can homebrew this and do it my way or this way. And you don't know what you're sort of throwing off behind the curtain.
Right.
In doing that. And again, homebrew it to your heart's content. But then please absolve the game developer of any demand of accuracy, because we don't know necessarily how we're messing around with the wires in the engine, even though we believe we're just painting the car.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. You bring up some good points. One of the things that in the article that I read a while ago and you touched on is, are we playing this the exact same way? I mean, are we putting in the pitchers and the skaters and the goalies, and are we handing off enough? I mean, so when you play the game, are you playing it for fun in your way, or if you're looking for accurate stats, then you got to play it accurate as according to the team would play it, and sometimes that's not always the funnest way to do it. You know what I mean?
Right. That's right.
And so, but again, you said Army runs at 92% of the time. I frankly would never play that team because I'm not going to run 92% of the time. It's just not what I'm going to do. But if I started passing a lot, then that's you're not going to get the results that you should be getting. And the other thing is, I think it was Tebow brought this up a couple of times. He says, especially with the app, he goes, you're pitching Roger Clemens, let's say, and he gets hit around, and you got to bring in a reliever. And let's say Clemens is an A pitcher, an Apple or whatever it is. And, the reliever they brought in was a D-rated pitcher in Apple, let's say. Every fiber of your being says, I'm just going to keep Clemens in. He's an A. Why would I bring in a D pitcher? But if you don't get those D pitchers their innings and their reps, then you're going to throw off the accuracy of the game. So are you playing it the same way? Are you bringing in the pitches that you're looking at the cards in hindsight because the season's been played and the ratings are done? You have no idea what he was going to do and how bad he was at that point of the season. So if you don't bring him in, you're kind of cheating yourself with that, So that's one thing that again, you got to bring in the bad players again with the goalies. If your starting goalie gets lit up and you bring in, why would you bring in the backup who's worse? Well, because that's what you would do. This guy's gotten shelled. You take him out, and you do bring in the bad guy because that's just kind of how it's supposed to be. And you can't always just game the game by saying, well, I'm just going to always play my good guys, because then now the accuracy is thrown out the window because you're not playing the game as you should. A couple things. I remember playing that Edmonton, New Jersey game when Edmonton won 13-4 or 13-2, and Wayne Gretzky called New Jersey the Mickey Mouse operation. We call it the Mickey Mouse game. And I played that game a couple times, and wouldn't you know that New Jersey was in the lead a handful of times before they ultimately lost by a couple of goals, but I never got close to 13-4. It was an outlier. It really was. It was a fluke, and it was just, that's how it was, but I've never got close to that. And I think a lot of the games that I've tried to duplicate, and a lot of us have, it's like, hey, I'm going to play this game that was like 54-0 in football. You don't get 54-0. You might get 38-10, but you're not going to get 58. So those outlier games never happen. And also, the other thing is, there's been a handful of games that I've played where someone had 4 goals in a season or 4 home runs in a season, and they'll get 2 in one of my games, like early in the season. That's already happened in my 76 replay. I forget what team it was. I don't know if it was Baltimore or Detroit or something like that. Someone got 2 home runs in one game. And I'm looking at their card. I go, man, this is not a 4 home run card. They had 4 home runs all year. And it's like you get into the wheelhouse, and in the wheelhouse you got a 50% chance against a righty for hitting a home run in the wheelhouse. He's going to hit way more than 4 home runs because I had 2 in one game, but maybe if I played that season, he wouldn't hit another one, And the same with goals. I've had a guy, score 2 goals in the game, and he's had 3 goals all season. Was that just a fluke, or is he on pace for, a 160-goal season? I mean, so I think we have these crazy things that happen in our game, but again, I think a lot of us play a couple games. We jump to these conclusions about, oh well, this game ain't accurate because this guy's already got 2 goals. He only had 4 all season, and in one game he's got 2. So that means he's probably going to end up with 50 or 60 goals, and But I haven't played those other 79 games.
Right?
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about. If you're playing, this may not be a problem for hardcore replayers. As a matter of fact, I'm certain this isn't a problem. But for someone like me, right, if I'm going to play a historical replay, I'm naturally inclined to apply how I've seen the game to that era. So what I mean by that, right? So in my quote unquote era, right, I'm on the younger side. Bunting a runner over is not something that we see a lot of in this era, right? Mm-hmm. Hit and runs is not something we see a lot of in this era. A pitcher going over 5 innings is not something we see in this era, okay? So if I'm going to play, let's just say, the 86 Red Sox, right? Because I want to torture Dave. And and they're going to play completely different than what I'm used to in the real world. But I'm naturally inclined to still play it with modern sensibilities.
Yep.
So I'm throwing the whole game off as it is. ST, you mentioned the 92% Army, right? Wasn't it Georgia Tech, if I'm not mistaken, like 10, 15 years ago, ran a triple option and did the same thing?
I think Army from 2017 has the highest run rate I've ever found in just sort of doing the college work so far at 92%. But Georgia Tech's, I believe, was in the high 80s when they maxed out their run. Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's say, right, and I know I'm speaking to the wrong audience when I say that, because replay gamers are listening to me right now and they're like, well, you're wrong. I would know that. But if I were to pick up matchup college football and I'm playing the Miami Hurricanes schedule and Georgia Tech comes up, right? And let's say, because how I like to game is I like to call offensive plays for both sides. Mm-hmm. So I may look at the cards and I might figure, oh, okay, like these guys have good run ratings, so I'm going to run quite a bit. But like Dave mentioned earlier, or maybe it was ST, okay, we're in a 3rd and 12. I'm not running the ball, right? But I'm going to instinctively, for at least the first quarter or half of that game, I'm going to want to throw the ball with Georgia Tech.
Right.
And I'm going to say, wait. Why is this quarterback, 1 for 9 and we can't get a first down? And then, I'll figure it out later. But my point is, if I were to approach that game with my sensibilities and I'm unaware of Georgia Tech and what they do, I'm going to sit there and say, what is wrong with this game? But there's nothing wrong with the game. You're just not playing. You're not playing Georgia Tech how you should.
Right. And that's the problem with not using automated play calling, is that we tend to call the game as we would call any game with any team.
Sure.
And I think in play calling in football, that's problematic. I think you're right, Marco.
I think we tend to be very aggressive with our play calling too, because as a football coach in real life, you can't be slinging it around and playing the riverboat gambler all the time. You can live and die by that real fast. So, and for us, it's like it's no big deal just to keep throwing the bomb over and over and over. It's our tabletop. It don't matter. We're just here to have fun. If we hit it once in a while, hey, great, I got it. But yeah, that's
it's not our jobs on the line.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, what I would say, though, too, what I would add is, what about those games, and this is the wrong word, but I'm going to use it anyway. What about those insidious games where you think the strategy, like baseball, right? For someone who might be ignorant, again, I know I'm talking to the wrong audience, but like, what do you mean strategy? Like, this pitcher versus that batter, roll the dice and let's see the result. They may not understand, like, well, no, like this hitter in this situation is going to bunt the ball. And if you're, or like hockey, like I get it. If you're playing APA hockey, I think, remind me, Dave, I think there's 3 modes. There's like an aggressive mode, a balanced mode, and then a defensive mode. Right. Yeah. So if you're not an expert in hockey specifically, hey, I really don't know how this team plays, so I'm just going to play balanced the whole game. You're probably going to get wonky results. And you're probably going to blame the game when it's not the game's fault,
No, that's right. And also, one of the interesting parts of this whole discussion that I find is that we tend to be tolerant of inaccuracy as long as we like the inaccuracy, right?
Yeah.
So if Boston as a hockey team
stop
wins 15 more games than they won in real life,
that's the best game ever.
They would say, well, I just played well, I rolled well, and they just won. What can I do about that, right? If they lose 15 more games than they won in real life, well, there's a problem here. I don't know what the problem is. And if Barry Bonds, for you today, hit a home run, and so he's on a pace now to hit 162.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But you're okay with Bonds hitting home runs like that. You're okay with Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire hitting home runs like that. If you like the player, we're kind of okay if they overperform. We don't like when they underperform. That's inaccurate. If they overperform, we don't quite see it as inaccurate. We kind of see it as, well, I just rolled well. Like, that's just what happened. And I like that. So we also view inaccuracy through this sort of lens of how much do we like the inaccuracy?
Yeah. I was talking to James Cast, right, back in January on his podcast. And I said, have you gone through the exercise of playing the 2007 Giants-Patriots Super Bowl? Because I know he's a big Giants fan.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but essentially, if you played those two teams, if you whip those two teams out, pick a game engine, pick whatever, it does not matter. The Patriots probably go 10-0, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe the Giants win 1, right? So, over the course of a season, the Giants are probably going to be the most average team in the league. They might not even make the playoffs. Maybe they win 7 games. Maybe they win 9. But I guess at the end of the day, the magic of our hobby, though, is maybe today's the day that I pull out Giants Patriots in '07 and David Tyree, pinches that ball to the side of his helmet and the Giants win the Super Bowl. Maybe today's that day.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And that's also why I need to say again, because I feel like poor Dave is going to get a lot of emails that say, I hated that discussion if I don't point this out. I'm not saying that all of this isn't good. We had a poll a couple of years ago that said, if at the end of a baseball replay, 162 games, all of your stats and all of your standings ended up exactly as they did in real life, would you see it as a success or would you see it as a fail? Overwhelmingly, the responses were it would be a success. For me, it would be a fail. I would feel like I wasted my time because, like you said, I want to see some sort of new narrative, some sort of a new story, and I want to believe that I coached the Oakland A's to beating the New York Yankees in 2001 because Derek Jeter didn't make that stupid backhanded toss to home plate to beat the A's, right? I want to feel like I could, coach them up. And so I don't necessarily want this hardcore line of accuracy. I believe that you should be able to call your own plays or make your own lineups or do whatever you want to do with these games and have them remain elastic. Yeah. Sort of have them bend and bend and bend, but not break. And for you to end up with some results that are maybe a little off the beaten path, but still, I want to get back to this word, realistic. Like, they exist in the realm of what you believe should happen or what could happen with these teams and these players at their best and at their worst.
I wouldn't consider that a fail, all right? I think that's a very strong word if you nailed everything right on. What I would consider is boring.
Yeah.
I mean, you did all that work and you got exactly what happened in real life. And to me, that's kind of boring. It kind of is. I did a full season replay, 1970-71 with Downey Final Score Hockey. Okay? That's what I did. And I rolled every single game. It's just a quick play game. It takes less than a minute to play a game. And I put it in all the standings. And I did the whole season. When I got done, I would say 3 out of the 4 divisions in the NHL were, or I think it was 4 divisions at the time. If not, it was 2, whatever. But they were almost identical in standings. And there was one division where I think the second and third place team, the third and fourth place team swapped. It was pretty darn close. I hit a couple of the goals against and goals for at the end of the season right on for some teams, so I thought that was kind of neat. Nothing was too far, either way. And, as expected, the Bruins won the Cup, which they didn't because Dryden got hot and beat them in 70-71. But, as expected, the best team won it all. And it was kind of a fun project to do, and it was fun. It was fun getting real close with the numbers. It really was. But at the same time, it's like I did all that, and I just got the exact same results, and it just, for me, it was kind of boring. And I was making some notes here as we talk. And so one of the things is there needs to be a chance for different things to happen. I need, those 500 teams to make the playoffs. I need those teams that made the playoffs to not make the playoffs. I mean, I don't want to see, the 78 Cowboys finish, 1-13. You don't want that. But I mean, there needs to be a chance, and there needs to be a little bit of sway. When you're playing these games here, you want to see some different results because that's why we play. I want to see what my results are compared to real life, and I try to use the same guys a lot, especially in my Classic Rewind games. And I want to see, if I play all the same guys, what's my result going to be? I'm not going to play it exact as they did in real life, but I'm going to try to bring in. I always like to bring in the first relief pitcher. Because, again, I don't know a lot about baseball and pitchers. But so I'll go to a game and I'll say, okay, so these are the guys they brought in first, and those are the guys I'll bring in first in my game, and try to keep it as close to an as played as possible. But, again, once you start going, I mean, if your pitcher gets rattled in inning 3, there goes the as played. Now you're bringing in relief pitchers way sooner than they did in real life. So for me, I try to start out with everything being equal. And then again, once you start rolling the dice, things kind of change, and that'll be that. But for me, as long as there's, again, I think realism is the best word. As long as I can look at this and say my results were realistic. Okay, this team did this team did that, and it's again, I don't want the 76 Buccaneers to go 10-4. But if you look back, they lost a handful of games by single digits. So, I mean, if they could have completed a darn pass every now and then, they might have won 4 games that opening year. And I know they got destroyed by the big teams. But, I mean, I just followed that 0-14 for so many years now. You look back at them, boy, they had a couple of chances at winning some games. So, I guess for me, there needs to be a chance for things to happen. And when I feel it can't, if I play a game and it's always this, and this, and this, and this, it's like, yeah, that's again, why bother playing? You want to, like you said, the narrative. You want a different narrative. You want a different storyline to come up. It's great if Bobby Bonds hits those little home runs and brings them to the whatever, the World Series or whatever it is. But what if some other guy sneaking around, just wow, he stole a bunch of bases, or he hit a little bit better. He came through in the clutch every time for me, That's why we play, and you got to have some realism, and you got to have a chance for different things to happen. And that's why I don't like when they rate somebody that can't hit a home run or can't score a goal.
Yeah,
I think everybody in hockey that touches the puck at some point can throw it towards the net, and it can hit a skate and go in, and they can get a fluke goal. Do I want them scoring 10 or 20? No, but I think everybody should have the chance for one, and the same with the home run. Just give somebody a 1 out of 100 chance if he never hit a home run. Give him that 1 out of 100 chance, or maybe 1 out of 200 chance, but just something to happen, rare play, anything like that. Just
exactly.
I mean, I every now and then I go on YouTube and I watch like the people that hit like one home run in their career. Was it Roberto Colon or something like that? I mean, the big pitcher that goes up there and just puts it out of the park, and everyone's just laughing their heads off at it. So you want that stuff to happen. Not much, but you do want it.
Right.
Shout out to 2 things real quick, Dave. So one, shout out to my White Sox fans, friends. They're all screaming right now. Scott Podsednik. So in 2005, Scott Podsednik had 0 home runs, hit a walk-off home run in the World Series.
In 85, that was also with Ozzie Smith, right? Off the Dodgers?
Maybe it wasn't a walk-off. They might have been in Houston. Another fun fact, back when Houston was in the NL. But 0 home runs in a 162-game season, hits a home run to win the World Series, or win a game in the World Series. Mm-hmm. So you're right, Dave. Absolutely. Like, that's someone I would love to see his APBA card or History Maker baseball card, because he probably has a 0% chance of hitting a home run, and yet he hit one in the World Series. But so I run the risk of never being invited back to your podcast after I say the following sentence. So maybe this is famous last words here, but I'm going to say it anyway. So if you're looking for a perfect replay, I've got news for you. There's this thing called YouTube where you can punch in whatever you want to watch,
right,
and you can go relive it yourself. So if that's what you're into and you just want a quick hit of nostalgia, go on YouTube. I again, this is just me, and I know there's a lot of people in the hobby that are like this. I play these games because I want to see if a team could do that again, or if a player can do that for the first time. But I talked about this again. I think it was on James's podcast. So, Play came out with that 20 years of second season. You get 20 seasons for like $20 or whatever. So I do really want to do this. I am not a Patriots fan, but my all-time favorite football player is Tom Brady. You could basically play his entire – you missed the first, I think, 2 years of his career, but you could basically play his career again. This is going to be a lifelong project.
Never thought about that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's not something I'll get done anytime soon, but I'll probably have to do it in Express to be realistic, but I want to play every game of his career, and I would be curious, does he win 7 Super Bowls, or does he win 6, or does he win 9? Does he even get to 3 more?
Do you think when people try to do something like that, replay a career of somebody that was really good, or replay a team that was really good, and they just can't get that to duplicate. Do you think that's disappointing?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's what ST said earlier. If the results are in your favor, you think it's great. If it's not, you think it's the worst game ever. Like I've said it a million billion times, but if I were to do a 2016 Cubs replay, and if they went out in the DS, they didn't even make it.
It's travesty.
Well, it's not just a travesty. It's what did I waste my time for? What did I like? Okay, fine. If they lose in the NLCS and it's Game 6 and it was a crazy series, I'm cool with that. If they get to the World Series and they get swept, I'm a little more upset, but I get it. At least they got there. If they flame out early, or they don't even make the play. Now, I don't know a game engine out there that they wouldn't make the playoffs, but let's say that happened. Yeah, I'd be upset. What did I waste my time for?
Right. And that's understandable. I do want to ask you this, though. As a person, Marco, who plays a lot of players and teams that are not real and that don't have a historical background, how do you sort of view accuracy in those games? Because I've heard a lot of people say they like to play fictional teams because there's no expectation of accuracy. Yet, I would think there still has to be some expectation of accuracy in the realm of the sport, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I play almost entirely fictional, at least in like long form, right? So like I almost never do any like real life season replay anymore. So my air quotes replay is just a fictional season. And right. What I will say is, again, getting back to is it realistic or is it accurate? So first of all, throw accuracy out in fictional. There is you're creating it, right? However, I think about my Football America that I sort of modded and made it my own thing, right? There is a team in there, the Philadelphia Patriots, that are the defending FA Cup champions, Football America Cup champs, and they got there last year and won the championship based on their defense, right? That they just have, they're not like Trent Dilfer and the Ravens, that they have a decent offense, but they got there because of their defense. And then there's Detroit, the team that they beat in the championship game, who is all offense. They're the opposite, right? So I use those two teams as an illustration. When I pull out Detroit and they're playing, whoever, San Diego, Chicago, if their offense is sputtering, and I know Chicago has an average defense, for example, I find myself getting upset. Like, I'm like, not upset, but I'm like, wait a minute. Like, and okay, maybe Chris Anzalone, their quarterback, maybe he's having an off day and it is what it is. But if we pull him out again next week and it happens again, I'm like, okay, something. But here's a big caveat. Because it's fictional, I have the freedom now that I start creating the storylines in my head where I'm like, hey, something's wrong with Anzalone. Like, maybe he's going through a divorce, whatever.
Right.
He's having issues with his coach, his wide receiver, and him are feuding. So now I can start making those storylines and bringing them through the season. But yeah, to directly answer your question, if a team doesn't, even if it's fictional, Stone Cold Hockey. Well, this isn't a video podcast, but yeah, I've been playing Stone Cold Hockey, and I told Gary about this at IndyCon. Philadelphia, again, it's all fictional, but Philadelphia, if you looked at Philadelphia's card, you would question how they lost a hockey game. They did not make the playoffs last season. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you guys, when I was rolling it, it was almost miraculous to watch because they were losing games in the final time slot. They were losing games in shootouts. They were like they found every which way to lose a hockey game except getting blown out. And so my whole point for bringing them up is, although I was kind of upset, I'm like, this team, and they were the defending champs, by the way, this team should be blowing teams out. Just look at their card. But there again, when you roll the dice, it's all fictional. I can't plan for a final time slot goal. I can't plan for. I remember one game distinctively, and I know I'm running a little long, so I apologize. But I remember one game specifically. They were up like 3-0 in the third period, and I think they were playing Detroit. Detroit gets a goal in the first minute of the third period. Then they get another one. Then the clock runs all the way down, and they get an empty net goal. And then we go to overtime. It goes to a shootout, and Detroit wins. And I'm like, I could totally see that happening. I could picture that game in my head. Even though it never should have happened, I could see it.
Yeah. It's really interesting with the guys that I know who play fictional teams almost exclusively. Like, there is a storyline that develops in your head. And for you guys, you do have expectations year to year, and maybe it's not accuracy, maybe it's realism, but you do sort of create these all-stars and these all-star teams in your head. And if the star pitcher pitches poorly, you're like, I can't believe what just happened, right?
Yeah.
So it does happen in the realm of sports possibilities, and I find that interesting as well.
All right, so we've been talking accuracy. We've got deep dive into accuracy in our games here. Again, I've been joined by ST Patrick and Marco Scola. All right, so let's wrap this up in a couple of sentences here. Marco, any final thoughts here on talking about accuracy?
I don't mean to steal ST's thunder, but I think his opening salvo there was perfect. It's if you're looking for accuracy, I'm not saying you're not going to find it. You will absolutely find accurate things, but if you're looking for perfection, it's impossible. You'll never be able to totally recreate a season. So for me personally, and I think this should be the standard for everyone, but I'm never going to tell someone how they should game. But if the game is realistic, right, if you have a good offense against a good defense, this should be your result. If you have a ace pitcher against a team that can't hit the broadside of a barn, that pitcher should go 8 innings, 1 hit, no runs, whatever. As long as the realism lines up, that to me is perfection.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever played a game. And again, I'm fairly new to the hobby here, but in the last 6 years or so, or 7 years, I don't think I've ever played a game and walked away and said, I'm never playing that again because that's not accurate enough. Right. Every game has some semblance of accuracy. Again, we all define it differently in the whole bit. But I can honestly say I don't think I've ever played a game that says, wow, that was the most inaccurate game I've ever played. I don't know how you designed this game, and I'll never play it again. I don't think that's ever happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me neither. I can't think of one.
So, ST, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think what you're explaining there is right now we have such availability of numbers, and the way that we use them has gotten so detailed that, man, it's been a long time since I can even remember saying I played a game and, man, that's a bad game. Like, I like every game I play to some degree and for a variety of reasons, because they've gotten, gosh, the talent in this hobby is now amazing. It's at an all-time high, I think. And the options are at an all-time high as well. Mm-hmm. And if you want to play a score generator that will get you around the right scores, you can do that. If you want to play these full play games that get you the right stats, but maybe the standings might be a little off because a lot of things have to happen, you can get that. I would say let's be a little bit easier on the game designers, not because I am one, but because to get 100% accuracy or even anything within 3%, the gamers also have to play the game within 3% of how the real team played the game as well. And I don't know that we're going to do that. And like Dave said earlier, I think that would take away part of our joy in the game. And I think we want some autonomy, do we not? I mean, we want to make some choices here and there. Although we might even I like being a spectator and kind of watching my game play out. But even then, I do like a little bit of autonomy, or it's not really a game. It's more of a process if you don't have autonomy. And so let's be a little bit easier on the game designers regarding accuracy. And let's just say, you know what, you did a really good job depicting the realism of this sport and this era and these teams, because I think we have a lot to be happy about in this hobby. And I honestly can't think right now of a game where I would say, yeah, that's a bad game. And for any hobby to have a 100% hit rate in their products is amazing. And I think we are in an amazing time in our hobby.
I'm thinking, too, here that if I did play whatever game I was and I hit it right on the head, most every time, what would you talk about? It's like, yeah, I played that Super Bowl in X game, and I was off by a point. And then I played the next Super Bowl, and I was off by 2 points. And then I played the Stanley Cup, and the same team won it in 6 games. I mean, it's kind of neat to a point that it's like, yeah, I'm getting it right on to what happened in real life. But what do you talk about? How do you tell your buddies, hey, guess what? I just replayed last year's Stanley Cup, and it come out the exact same way. Now, don't you want to say you wouldn't believe it? You wouldn't believe it. In Game 7 last year, this is what happened, and this guy got 3 goals. He didn't get a goal all series. That's what you talk about.
Yeah.
You talk about the exciting things that are a little bit different than what happened. Scott Norwood hit the field goal or whatever it was. Or maybe Buffalo never even made it to the Super Bowl that year. And so for me, once in a while, I don't mind getting it pretty close. I think it's kind of neat once in a while. But if it happens too much, it's just boring and there's nothing to talk about.
I agree with you, but I think the three of us are in the minority there. I really do, because in the results of our poll a few years ago, a vast majority responded that would be their perfect replay.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
And again, there's something to be said for that. Don't get me wrong. There's something to be said for playing a game and getting it pretty darn close, because then you do feel confident about at least the game itself. Again, I know we talked about how we play it different, and are you putting in the pitches at the right time and the goalies, and we talked about a lot of different variables as how you play it. But I think we would all be pretty satisfied if we got something pretty close. I think that would be pretty fun. But again, it'd be kind of at the same time boring for me, because I want to see. When someone does a replay and I follow along, if it's the same 4 teams getting into the playoffs or the same 8 teams, it's like, oh, geez, well, nothing's changed, and here we go again. There's been times I've actually played some things and got into the playoffs, and I don't even want to play it now.
Yeah.
Because it's the same 4 teams. I played this whole season out, and it's like it's for the same 4 teams to be in the playoffs. It's like, I could. Why didn't I just play those 4 teams in a tournament, and do it that way?
Right.
It's kind of how I'm looking at that, So, but anyway, so we were talking about accuracy. We'd like to know your thoughts on accuracy as we took a deep dive into this one. Before we go, we do want to recognize our 3 stars of the game. And this is episode 264 of the Digital Today's podcast. In no particular order, we have someone who showed up last week to the convention. That would be our number 3 star, Mark Unger.
Oh, yeah.
Mark, good to see you at the show. Thanks for coming out and checking it out. Our number 2 star, we have JT 2.0, which is way better than JT 1.0, as I always say. So, JT, thanks for coming by. And our number 1 star here in episode 264, we have Joel Hill. Joel, I want to thank you so much for supporting the show as we take we're going to be starting year 7, I think, this summer. I think we're in year 6 in a couple of months. We might even kick it off down in Canton. That might be the kickoff to year 7 down in Canton.
Wow.
Or pretty close. I don't know if it's July or August. I think it might be July, actually, but we might push it back a couple of weeks. You never know. But anyway, all right, let me wrap some things up here. So you've been listening to the Digital Today's podcast. We've been talking accuracy, a deep dive here in episode 264. I was joined by ST Patrick and Marco Scola. Ways to get a hold of us: digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, join the group, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. Marco, once again, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was awesome.
And ST, once again, thanks for jumping in.
Dave and Marco, thank you guys very much. It was a wonderful discussion.
Alrighty, and until next time, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.